All righty. Hot Breath Averse. Welcome back to Hot Breath, the show where you learn comedy from the pros. We are here again with our Q&A series with a comic that shares that same self-made creative spirit that we hope to inspire you future comedians to embody in your own careers. At 10 years old, he saw Eddie Murphy and the rest is history. He has since released 4 comedy specials, 2 TED Talks, a book he's written and produced and directed. Did he direct his movie? Maybe a little more research. No. Oh yeah. I'm. Oh my gosh, I pride myself on research, and then I just fumbled on the director thing. It's pandemic. Just be happy we're on here, everyone. But it's all self-made. Even with someone like Mitzi Shore is like, you should wear a turban on stage. He's like, nah, I'm gonna go my own route on this. And now today he is here to inspire all of us to do the same. And don't forget about his podcast, Back to School with Maz Jobrani, which is all about learning, which is what we're all about here at Hot Breath as well. So I would say out of all the intros we've done during the pandemic, this may be the most clumsy, but I think that means we're on to something very special here. So welcome to the show, Mr. Maz Jobrani, everyone. Let's show him some love here. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. I love that. Yeah, I agree. And they're saying, speaking of clumsy, they're saying they can't hear. So hold on a second. There's no sound. Ah!
There you go. Exactly what we were just talking about.
Oh, I think we are now. That's
So that whole story just went to hell.
that whole story they didn't even hear because of the clumsiness. That's so
And
funny.
you and I just gave the secret to life and they just missed it.
They
But that's
did.
fine.
No
Yeah.
worries. No worries,
Yeah.
everyone. You'll
Yeah.
figure it out in due time. But I speaking of like life, I mean, it's so cool to be interviewing you the day after such a monumental day here in America. I mean, what is your overall reaction to hopefully this positive
so
shift?
so many things. First of all, that feeling, first of all, it was a feeling of seeing people in leadership that you go, okay, these are the people who should be running a country. Not necessarily Democrat, Republican, just people who know what they're doing. You
Yeah.
follow what I'm saying? Because
Mhm.
for the longest time, for the past 4 years, it wasn't just Donald Trump who was bumbling. It was everybody on his team that they would, you get Dr. Fauci, who you're like, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about. They go, all right, we'll put him aside, bring on Dr. Atlas, who I don't know if you remember Dr. Atlas, Scott Atlas, but he was like, you don't need masks, you don't need, just go out and get sick, and then we'll just get herd immunity. I mean, just like, but one after the next had cockamamie cuckoo ideas. Pillow guy, his own doctor. I mean, it was just Mike Flynn. All these people that you watch, you're like, how are these people running this country? And it led to an attempted coup. I mean, we saw it. I mean, it's so irresponsible where we got. So to see these people up there now, where you go, okay, and then right away, I love that Biden went right to that White House and he signed all those executive orders.
Yeah.
I was a big opponent of the travel ban that was just a total farce because the excuse behind the travel ban or the Muslim ban was there's these countries we need to block from coming to America and it's for America's safety. But none of the countries on the travel ban had ever committed an act of terror in America. Um, so from that to the Paris Climate Accords to the pipeline, it just feels like a lot of things are starting to move in the right direction. So yesterday was a breath of fresh air. It was Amanda Gorman, who was the poet laureate, was amazing.
Amazing. Yeah.
That was just like I had to listen to that poem several times. I'm going to go back and read it now because I'm going, how old is this girl? She's 22 and she's this wise and confident and eloquent,
Hmm.
beautifully done. Just the whole day was an amazing day. It was almost exhausting with goodness.
Yeah,
I kind of
thank
slept a
goodness.
lot yesterday. Yeah, yeah. So
What was it like? What's it like? Because I can tell you from being a straight white man who looks like a trumpeter, it's
yeah.
been a rough 2020. I mean, the white people, it's really been a bad era for the brand, I'll say. And like, what is it like from like an immigrant's perspective, looking at America with like where we got to? Like, what was it like from like an immigrant's perspective of like what is happening in America right now?
Well, someone like you who might sit there and watch all these white extremists rushing the Capitol, or might see the hate and the vitriol being spit, and you're shaking your head going, that's not me. Why are these guys doing it? And I fit the profile. Welcome to my world whenever there would be like a terrorist attack, right?
Yeah, great
And
point.
they, right, they'd be like, wait, why aren't the Muslims standing up and condemning this? I'm like, first of all, I'm not that religious. Secondly, what do you mean? Like, what do you want me to say? It's an act of terror. Of course I'm going to condemn it, right?
Yeah.
So similarly with you, it's frustrating to see. It's like when September 11th happened, I hated those guys more than you might have hated those guys because first of all, they were murderers and they're criminals. But secondly, what they did to instigate more hate against people that either look like them, or whether they were Muslims or Sikhs or whatever. I mean, it's just they made life harder for everybody. So all of that to say that it is you got to stay on the right side. You got to keep being you. You got to keep
Hmm.
talking your truth, and what happened with this movement, it's just, look, we always knew they existed. They're there. They've always been there, right? This is the country that was built on slavery, and there still are people in certain parts of the country who believe in some level of supremacy because of the color of their skin and their sex, because they're men. Um, but Trump really enabled them. I mean, if you look at my special in 2017, I think my son's hitting something against the wall here. If he is, I'll have to go tell him to stop. If you look at my immigrant special on Netflix, I actually mention that. Hold on one second. He
No
actually
worries.
is hitting
No
stuff. Hold
worries
on.
at all. And thanks everyone for tuning in. I'm sorry about
Hey, buddy, I'm in
the
here.
technical difficulty.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, but I'm glad all y'all can see it and hear us now.
Um, First of all, we learned all y'all over the. I learned all y'all, which is fantastic.
All
That was
y'all.
yeah, that was a trivia thing we came upon. All y'all is plural for y'all, correct?
Amen. Yes, sir.
Yeah. But what I was getting at was I was just saying that it's so in my special I talk about this. I go because leading up to Trump's win, I remember people would ask me like, "What do you think of Trump?" Right now, let me take you back for a minute. As a comedian, before Trump ran, when he was the Apprentice guy, I had like a silly joke or two I would do about him on stage that would get a chuckle, but nobody would be offended. Everyone's like, "Oh, that guy's a clown. He's a bozo." Once he started running and started spewing hatred, it's amazing how passionate people became about this guy and
Mm-hmm.
defending him. And I go, wait a minute. So it takes racism for you to embrace this guy, or hatred for you to embrace this guy? And the level of it, like now in comedy clubs, there's been times where I'll do a Trump joke during his presidency and people lose their mind. You cannot make fun of our president. I'm like, I go, the whole point of America is we can make fun of our presidents, whether it's Joe Biden or Trump or whoever it is. You should be able to make fun of them. That's the whole point of it. And I remember talking about, I said, I'm not as worried about him as I am about his followers, because I said that he is going to say stuff that ultimately he's some rich dude who's going to go have his steak dinner. You can sit down at a restaurant, talk to him and be like, I disagree with that nut job, and go home. But his followers are going to take his words and be like, yeah, Mexicans are rapists and Muslims are terrorists and the caravan's coming to get us and black people are going to take over and that's where all that culminates.
Yeah.
and they go out and commit that act. And going back to the special in 2017, I took a moment in the special to remind people there was a guy in, I think it was Kansas, might have been Kentucky. This older white guy went to some restaurant, saw a couple of Indians from like India who were, engineers, and they're having dinner or they're eating or having a drink, whatever it is. For whatever reason, it was not instigated by the Indians. For whatever reason, I guess this guy gets upset at them, goes into his car, gets a gun, comes back, shoots them, and then he flees. And one of them ends up dying. And this guy's such an idiot. He flees and goes to another bar and tells the bartender, yeah, and tells the bartender, he says, I just killed an Iranian. So first of all, he didn't know the difference between an Indian and an Iranian. Secondly, I honestly feel, because this was when Trump was campaigning and there was a lot of vitriol, and he was like, the Iran deal is the worst deal ever. And all this, like, Iranians are this, that, the other. I thought that his rhetoric definitely emboldened that guy to go out and commit that act. And so here we are years later. So yeah.
And now hopefully it's new and positive. And like, I know this is mainly like comedy talk show, but like, there's no more like perfect person to like have on the show the day after this inauguration. So I was interested to hear your perspective, because I think there's a lot of uncertainty happening. There's a lot of new things happening, and something that's interesting to see with your new special, which is Pandemic Warrior, which you actually filmed in 2019 in Dubai, and we're going to call it Peaceful Warrior. But now it's like, oh, what now? I've got to like adapt to the times, and it's going to be on Peacock. Now, someone like you, who's like an OG in this game, who has seen it from just when it was a few like channels and few ways to get put on, to now everyone is seemingly having their own streaming platform. So as a newer comic like me looking at the new landscape, it's like, oh, now he was on Netflix and now he's on Peacock. Like, do you have any like behind what's happening right now, Maz, and how can comics take advantage of it?
Well, let me button up our conversation on the politics and let people know that I do feel hopeful. And I feel
Yeah.
that one of the things I'm hopeful about is that science is back in the administration, and I'm hoping it'll help us get out of this. And I know that people are worried and scared. There's white people. Obviously, there's 74 million people voted for Trump, thinking for whatever reason, like, oh, the Democrats are going to make this country socialist. They're going to take our guns. They're going to do this, that. I just remind them, Obama was president for 8 years. Life went on. Life was relatively good in America. It will be good here in America. Let's all work together. Don't be so scared of the unknown, and trust in the leadership, and trust in the science, and trust that some of the things that are going to happen are going to be good for you and me, and maybe some corporations will take a hit. So let's put that aside.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the taxes and all that. The special was filmed in 2019 in Dubai. I thought, okay, we're on a roll. I'm going to finish that. I'll bring it to America. I'll sell it. We'll keep going. Pandemic hits in 2020. And a little bit after the lockdown happened, I saw a couple of specials that came out on whatever it was, Netflix or whatever, and I'm watching it, and this is during lockdown, and it felt like they were shot on Mars, because the crowd was packed. The comedian was doing jokes about, I don't know, like traffic or something, and I'm going, what? This guy's not at all acknowledging what's going on in the world right now. So that's when I realized, okay, if I'm going to get my special out, I need to add a few minutes at the top performing under pandemic. So in the beginning of the Pandemic Warrior, which was going to be called Peaceful Warrior, now it's called Pandemic Warrior, there's about 4 minutes or so of me standing in my closet doing jokes to the camera, just to remind people, hey, I know we're under a pandemic, blah, blah, blah. Then you see the special, and then at the very end, you come back and there's a few more minutes in the closet. So that's one thing that I did to get it ready for what it is. Now, in terms of the landscape is crazy, and I have no idea where it's going and what's going to happen with it. I mean, the good news is we all have more places, more platforms to go out on, right?
Yeah.
And hopefully find a fan base, a following, and excite people. The bad news is that you might not get as many eyeballs. Like if back in the day, if you had your such and such special, 20 million people would see it or whatever it was because it was there. Now you're going to get a niche audience here, a niche audience there. And so I know that Peacock has gotten into, Peacock is a streaming service for NBC because all the networks now are getting streaming services so they
Yeah.
can bring their old shows and their new shows and basically compete with the Netflixes of the world. And they have decided to get into the stand-up comedy game as well. And I believe starting January 28th, they're going to drop a bunch of specials, and one of them is mine. And the hope is that people will watch specials there. I don't think anybody has any loyalty as to like, oh, I gotta watch a special on Netflix or I gotta watch a special here, on Peacock or whatever.
Hmm.
But I think people are just used to, like, when you say I got a comedy special, people go, oh, your Netflix special. That's what they say. So it's just a matter of just adjusting people's frame of mind a little bit to go, no, it's another place, and go check it out. And then people like you and all the other comedians have more opportunities.
Yeah, because I know you're a big believer in like the creator mindset and really creating your own success, creating your own projects. So for comics, like what we're doing here at Hot Breath, like part of the vision is for us to be like producing comedy specials. But it seems like as everything's becoming more fractured, and it is like every network getting a streaming service, so it's like everyone's going to have their own channel again. It almost feels like the future is people would subscribe to the artist. Like people may come to Hot Breath as opposed to like a Netflix. So that seems like where it's headed. But I'd be interested to hear your opinion on someone who has seen the entire evolution. Do you see it that being a possible
Yeah, I
outcome?
mean it's happening. That's what Patreon is. That's what all
Yeah.
these fan services are. Cameo, whatever it is. That's what that is. And your fans get closer to you. The pro side of that is, for example, my podcast. Right.
Yeah.
I've been doing it now for about 2 years, and we have a relatively small weekly listenership. I would say between YouTube and Spotify and podcast, maybe we get about 5,000 people listening. But the network I'm a part of, All Things Comedy, they looked at the statistics and go, "Look, your fans are listening from beginning to the end. They're not dropping off." So that tells you, okay, they're hardcore fans. So that's
Yes.
a good thing. That's fantastic. Now, for places like Hot Breath and for us, for myself, is how do I expand that audience? How do I get further? And the hope is, like, when you talk to these super fans, you say, guys, if you're enjoying this, share it with a friend, let them know, let's get some more people in, and that'll grow. And, look at a guy like Joe Rogan, who is bigger than some of these networks now because of that. He just kept growing and growing and growing. And,
Hmm.
you hope that you're providing quality stuff. The other thing is there's so many mediums between Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and you name it. You just keep going down the line to put material out on, and there's probably a lot of crap out there. So as long as you're putting out stuff that is relatively, good level stuff, you're putting some effort into your production, you're putting some effort into, the material you're putting out there. Personally I'm a believer that the fans will find you.
Ooh, I love it. So that being said, everyone watching this live, share this video now.
There
Share
you
this
go.
link now. Let the world know Hot Breath is out here. And speaking of hot breath, we had several fans in what we call the hot breathiverse that had some questions for you. And the first one coming from Ben Webb here, who actually this I'm gonna combine two of his because I think they're all relevant. But he's basically asking like, what have you been doing to stay disciplined in your own like writing and productivity, but also on like your mental and physical side of your life?
That's a good question. It's been, when you reflect back, if you remember early on, I live in California. I remember in March, they said, we're going to go on lockdown for, like, I don't know, whatever it was, a month or 2 months. And as a matter of fact, I was talking to my agents back then going, okay, so we'll just push the dates to summer. And I
Wow.
see that now and I go, how naive, right? And,
Yeah.
and so every once in a while when you step back and you go, oh my God, it's been a year almost since this has been happening. It can kind of feel like a heavy weight. But that said, there are ways to be creative and productive, both mentally and physically. First of all, I had been running every other day. I just got a cold right now, and I'm freaking out. I'm like, is it COVID? I think
Right.
it's a cold. Um, but I've been running every other day, which is great. Every time I exercise, I feel really good. So I highly encourage everybody to exercise. And speaking of exercise, actually, quick little plug. Since the special does come out on January 28th, I'm challenging people to hashtag run with Maz, which means set a goal for the 28th, whether it's a mile, 5 miles, 10 miles, whatever. Work your way to it. It's only a week away. Work your way to it. And that day, get out there, do that run. And then there's a charity named International Medical Corps, which is a charity that's been helping with pandemic relief and all kinds of stuff. I'm hoping that once people run and they hit their goal of a mile, 5 miles, 10 miles, whatever it is, if they go to my Instagram at Maz Jobrani, there's a link there on Linktree, leads them to International Medical Corps. They can donate $1, $5, $10, whatever it is. That's in lieu of a premiere party. Since I can't have a party for my special coming out, I decided let's all run and let's donate money to a good cause. So again, it's just hashtag run with Maz, and you upload your picture that day on the 28th. You upload a picture, hashtag run with Maz, tag me. That's again on the side. Exercise, very good physically. Mentally, as a comedian, I can't help but think about stuff. So definitely been heavy on the Twitter, been heavy on the Instagram, social media, kind of trying to find how do I take my comedy and bring it there a little bit. So that's always very inspirational. Secondly, look, there's Zoom shows, there's podcasts, all that stuff exists. So it's a matter of finding those and doing those. Obviously, as stand-ups, we're used to being on stage maybe 5 to 10 times a week. Now maybe you're getting up like once or twice a week at most. But find those opportunities. They're out there. And so those things have helped me stay sane, both creatively and physically.
Awesome. So the next question comes from Davida Kramer here, who actually says her birthday is on the 28th. So that's fun.
You better be running, Davida. Davida, you run a little bit, then you donate $5, $10, $100, whatever you got, but however you feel, you donate that. You go to at Maz Jobrani on Instagram in the link tree, run with Maz, and let's post your picture. Hashtag run with Maz.
I love it. So she asks, when you dropped out of UCLA PhD program to do stand-up, how did your family react?
My parents thought I was crazy. I come from an immigrant background, and a lot of immigrants that come from places like Iran or India or China, we have these parents that are they're very aggressive with their demands on you to be a lawyer, doctor, engineer, something that is a reputable profession.
Mm-hmm.
So because of them, I had decided to go to college. I studied political science as an undergraduate, thinking that I would maybe become a lawyer. Then my junior year in college, I studied abroad in Italy for 1 year. And while I was there, I saw this professor and I was like, oh, I love what he's doing. So I thought, you know what? Instead of being a lawyer, maybe I'll be a professor. And I thought maybe my parents would still be happy about that. So I came back, got into UCLA graduate school, started the professor program, and quickly realized it wasn't for me. So I dropped out. And it was funny because my mom, who had wanted me to have some job that was more reputable, she was like, listen, you didn't become a lawyer, you didn't become a professor. Forget this acting stuff. At least become a mechanic. And I was like, how'd you go from lawyer? I swear to God, I go, how'd you go from lawyer to mechanic? And she would say, she's like, listen, Maz, people need mechanics. Nobody needs an actor. And it's pretty wise because it's true. Like I think she's coming from a country where she fled for the revolution because of a revolution. She left her country. So in her mind, she's like, when that revolution happens in America and you have to flee to Argentina, you'll be able to work as a mechanic. And the truth is, given last week's or 2 weeks ago's insurrection, she was pretty close. Like I might have had to flee and go work somewhere. So
pretty legit, yeah. But then you're like, but Mom, Chuck Norris needs a terrorist in his movie.
Exactly. Who's gonna play the Chuck Norris terrorist? Yeah.
You seem to have done a good job of you have done a good job, and I think that's something comics can follow, is almost like seeing something unique about you and creating a brand and almost like a business behind it. Like, how intentional has that been, or has it been more of just an organic evolution?
That's organic. I feel like your voice comes out. The more you do it, the more people go, "Oh, I know you because of this, because of that." Now, the danger is you can get pigeonholed. So I often say, "Look, I'm not just don't just call me when you have an Iranian role or a Middle Eastern role or a Muslim role. Call me when you got an FBI guy. I can play an FBI guy." And as a matter of fact, that's my favorite calls that I get. I have friends sometimes will go, like Whitney Cummings put me in her TV show and in her movie, small parts, but it was just a doctor, no accent, just a doctor. I go, I could do that. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I was in The Interpreter. That picture right there is from a scene in The Interpreter where a bus has exploded, and I was a Secret Service agent. I love that kind of stuff. So, in the meantime, though, as you said, I think people do think of me when they're thinking like, okay, someone who talks a lot about politics in their comedy. I'm the guy, or again, someone who might be talking about immigrant experiences and all that stuff. And so that's what I was interested in. When people ask me what's your comedy about, I go, I take on social issues, political issues, and my kids. So those are the things that I wanted to talk about, and then that found its audience, and I think people are with me on that now.
And you actually have a fan here, Caligula from Germany, watching right now. And
Guten Tag.
they say, do you have some tips on joke writing or a special daily writing routine you could share?
I don't do a daily writing routine. What I did was, so there's different types of writers. There's some guys who do. They go sit in an office and they write, several hours a day. I think Seinfeld might do that. I'm not sure. I definitely was the type who wrote on stage.
Mm.
And that's been a little hard because of the pandemic, right? But what I would do is, let's say something happened in my life, and I'd be like, "Oh my God, we got a pandemic puppy, we got a dog." So I would have taken whatever happened with that dog that day, and I would go on stage at the Comedy Store or the Laugh Factory in LA, and I would do some story about it and find the punchlines in it, and I would record it on my phone. I would record it, and I would do, like I said, I would do like 6 times a week. I'd get on like each club once, so a total of 3 nights. That's 6 sets. You're chiseling the joke. You're chiseling the joke. You're chiseling the joke. So that's how I would do it. But you got to do it. You got to try it. And now, because I've been doing this for 22 years, I've got a pretty good idea of the rhythms of my own thought process. Mm-hmm. So sometimes something will happen and I'll just say something out loud in the house and it'll either get a chuckle from my wife or it'll be funny to me. And I'm like, all right, that's where I got to go with the joke. So like with the dog, for example, part of the joke has been that I never wanted a dog. My family wanted a dog, but then they kind of abandoned the dog. And now I'm walking around town picking up dog poop and by the way, that makes me feel American because Iranians or a lot of immigrants aren't dog people. So now I said getting your citizenship doesn't make you an American. Picking up dog shit is what makes you American. So
is that
there I am.
chiseling you're talking about? You performing on stage, you recording it, listening to it, and then are you like taking edits? Like, how do you start to chisel down this broad idea?
Well, what you do is exactly what you just said. You listen to the set. When you're on stage, you might say something and you go, "Ooh, that's a funny idea." I'll give you another. See, sometimes because you get 15 to 20 minutes at a time, right? So audience is there to see you. So they don't want to hear you for 15, 20 minutes just rambling on. But by the way, I've seen guys like Chris Rock or Chappelle who have built trust in their audience, do ramble for a few minutes till they find the punchline. But we trust them. We're like, oh, they're going somewhere with this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just them finding it, right? So when they don't know us as well, you don't want to go up there for 15 minutes to just ramble. So you might go up there and do like 4 or 5 minutes of material that's proven material. Get them laughing. And then in the middle of that, try this new idea with some punchlines that you have in mind and record it. And then go back and listen to it and go, oh, that worked, that didn't work. So for example, another thing that happened was we had when the pandemic hit, we had a mouse that was loose in the house, and we called a one of these exterminators to come kill the mouse, and he kept bringing all kinds of cages, and the mouse kept escaping, and he finally gave me this crazy like jaws of death mousetrap and was like, I'm leaving this with you. I can't keep coming back. Good luck to you. And I caught the mouse. I swear to God, it like chewed the mouse like that, middle of the night. And I walk out and I see this mouse that's like half dead but wiggling. And I was like, oh my God. It was like Breaking Bad. Like I had to get rid of this mouse. But all of that to say, like as I was going through this, I go, this is like afterwards, as I was telling the story to my wife, she was like, you got to talk about this on stage. And I was like, yes, yes. And it was about trying to find some punchlines because you're talking about killing a mouse, which a lot of people are going to be like, that's horrible. And I feel it's horrible. But one of the punchlines came after doing it several times and going, what is the out? So I'm doing it, listening. And then I was like, okay, I need something funny at the end that lightens the mood because it becomes kind of dark because you're like, there's this mouse and there's blood. And I'm like, ugh. And the punchline of it, or I should say the sentiment of the joke at the end is that as I was disposing of the mouse and throwing him into the garbage can, he's dead already, right? But he's in a bag and I'm throwing him away. And how bad I felt that this bastard exterminator gave me this jaw of death to kill this mouse. And I was like, I felt so bad. And then I realized, wait a minute, mice are actually like dirty animals. They carry the plague, like rats and mice. They carry the plague. This mouse was in my house. I don't know what he was doing. I mean, it's kind of a disgusting animal,
Mm-hmm.
but they've done a good job of PR because there's Tom and Jerry, there's Mickey Mouse, there's Mighty Mouse, and we're like, oh, he's so cute. And then I was like, wait a minute, why is it I feel so bad about the mouse dying, or as people, like if a mouse dies, we're like, oh, but like people kill a Muslim, you're like, yeah, like in America, right?
Uh-huh.
In America, I'm saying the American mentality. So I was like, in America, I go, Muslims need a cartoon to become more endearing to Americans so Americans don't hate Muslims as much. So that kind of was like the roundabout thought process, which was like, and so like instead of Tom and Jerry, it's Tom and Jihad or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like, and by the way, this is a bit that's still being worked, but it's massage, and chisel, and hopefully get to a point where you can tell the story and have your punchlines throughout.
Awesome. All right. Yeah, well, let's land this plane here. I know we're coming up on time. Davita said to post more info and Hot Breath about your run on the 28th. Yeah, I'll definitely love to participate, and we'll rally the Hot Breathiverse around that. That's such a great cause we want to help with.
I appreciate that. Yeah, listen, all they got to do, if you can post this, they can go to @Maz Jobrani on Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
and it's in my link tree. There's a link to Run with Maz, and that takes you right to the page of International Medical Corps and what's going on and how it works. It's very simple. Again, you pick your miles, you set your goal, get it done, go on the page, donate. Let's raise some money for International Medical Corps.
Awesome.
And happy birthday, Davita.
Oh my gosh, she was so excited about this. So thanks for doing that.
Sure.
So do you as we always end the show with like your favorite comedy advice you've gotten in your career? Someone asks comedy advice, like what is your go-to or what's been your favorite advice you've picked up?
My number one piece of advice with comedy, with anything that you're passionate about, some guy I don't even really know just sent me like a script. He's like, "Can you read my script?" My number one piece of advice is, look, I might be able to read your script, or you might send me your link for your comedy, and I might watch it. I'm going to say, oh, you're funny, or you got work to do. Ultimately, it takes time. So the only piece of advice I give is I say, write as much as you can, get on stage as much as you can. It's that simple. The formula is that simple because, you know, if you send me your clip and you've been doing it for a year, I guarantee you're not going to be cooked yet. You're not going to be ready, right? When you're doing it 5 years, you're going to start seeing some results. 5 years going 5 to 10 times a week, and writing, 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 you're going to start seeing some results. I was watching the Ronnie Chang special on Netflix, and he talks about how he moved to New York, and he goes, I just started getting on stage, getting on stage, getting on stage. And you see him, and he's a killer. Why? Because he was getting up so much. So it's really that simple. There's no shortcuts. There's no like, oh, if I give this to Maz, he'll make me a star. No, it's not gonna happen. I can't. I don't have the power to do that. But if you do it and you do it and you do it and you do it, people will start noticing, and before you know it, you look around and be like, oh wow, I've been doing this for 10 years, and I've got some success going.
Awesome. Yes, that's been the number one advice in over 300 interviews with comics. Is like you can't outsmart the work. At the end of the day, you got to put in the reps. So,
That's it.
thanks for sharing that, Maz. Would you mind just to end this, looking into the camera, saying your name, why people should listen to Hot Breath, and promoting what you have coming up?
Hi, I'm Maz Jobrani. I want you all to listen to Hot Breath because there are a lot of drops of wisdom on this hot breath, and you won't catch COVID from it. So,
Ooh.
this is the kind of breath that you want to watch. So, watch, share. Let's help Joel grow Hot Breath. Let's get to 1 million viewers, followers, subscribers,
Yeah.
and we'll all celebrate once he goes public with his IPO. We can all
Yes.
buy stocks. The future's bright. In
Yes.
terms of what you guys can see from me, on January 28th, starting January 28th on the Peacock streaming network, I have my special coming out. It's called Pandemic Warrior. It'll be streaming, so you can watch it anytime you want. And Peacock, I believe, offers a free trial, so you can try it out and see if you like that new streaming network. It's got The Office on there. It's got a lot of NBC shows and a lot of stand-up. So check me out, January 28th, Pandemic Warrior. And also make sure to check out my podcast. It's called Back to School with Maz Jobrani. It's on YouTube. It's on iTunes, everywhere you hear these podcasts, and subscribe there as well. And I interview a lot of interesting people, and you're going to learn a lot of interesting stuff from Back to School with Maz Jobrani. Thank you.
All right. Everyone in the comments is saying great interview. Thank you, Hot Breathverse, for hanging out. We'll be back with another interview soon. Have a good day, everyone.
Bye, Joel. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, Maz. Thanks, everyone.
Bye
Have a good
bye.
day.